Tech by Tips.
Hello and welcome to another Tech by Tips video. First of all, I want to thank once again two donors to the channel. These two people are Jeff Irueta and Jason Davis. Thank you very much for your donations. They're really appreciated. You're rock stars. Thank you very, very much. And today we're going to be discussing this video request that's been in the queue for a while. This is from last year, so I want to get this one going. So this person actually placed two requests in one. They requested an application named Posterizarr and an Whisper. So I'm going to be covering those. First, I'm going to start with Posterizarr, and this comes from Raging Bull. So let's get to working with this. So what is Posterizarr? So if we go into GitHub, we'll find a repository in github.com/fscorrupt/Posterizarr, and it tells us that this is an automated poster maker for Plex, Jellyfin, and Emby. So if you are familiar with our series on the R's and the HTPC NAS, these are the players basically. So Plex, Jellyfin, and Emby, they're players for your content. And whenever you go into those applications, you have a user interface that relies on a lot of posters to let you know what content you're looking at. And this application, Posterizarr, makes customized posters for those contents that you have in your HTPC machine. So this is not really an application per se. This is a PowerShell script, so it's a little bit different. It has been worked on for a while. It has 98 releases and is currently on version 1.9.32. So that's really good. That tells us that there's a lot of people that are contributing to this frequently. The contributors are 6 right now. So the amount of people is small, but they are actively working on this script often. And it's pretty nice to see people that work on the Windows side of things, because you can actually do a lot of powerful things with PowerShell. So it's nice to see something written in PowerShell that is useful. So as you can see, this is mainly PowerShell, a little bit of VBA and Python. And if we scroll down here, we have basically an idea of what we can expect this script to do. It is able to download posters and then add text and stuff to make it customizable for you. And then you can use this in your Plex or Emby or Jellyfin to see custom posters for your content. That's pretty nice. This has a lot of information on the README. So this is something that you can customize very specifically to your needs and what you want. So I'm going to do like a quick overview of how to get it running, but the configuration part is just going to be a glance, honestly, because it's up to you what you want to do with it, but they have good documentation for that. So basically it tells us that the application automates the process of generating images for your media library, and it uses information from your Plex, Jellyfin, or Emby library, such as the movie, the title, season, episode data, and stuff like that. And it fetches relevant artwork, so that's the images from FunArt, the movie database, the TV database, Plex, and IMDb. So you have a lot of sources to pull those images from. And it says that the script is able to focus on artwork with specific languages. So let's say, for example, you not only want English, even though that's the default. You can say, for example, Spanish, Italian, Chinese, whatever you want. It is able to work with that. And you can set the configuration and all that for how you want your posters, the focus on the text, or if you don't want text on them and stuff like that. So it is very configurable for whatever you want in your Plex to see. And they have a lot of other information here. Basically it says that the poster types that it supports is the movie and show poster, also the backgrounds, also the seasons, and the title cards. So that's the kinds of posters that it can create. And here's a walkthrough of how you install it. If you click there, then it's going to take you to another file, and in there you'll have the option to see the Docker, which is what we're going to be doing. There's a lot of extra information here. Basically he's recommending, or they are recommending, that you use this on Linux. To get it running in ARM apparently it's a little tricky, and stuff like that. So just read up on what they give you here. And here we have like the different capabilities that you can have with the application. It's a lot, so I'm not gonna cover this. You can come here and read it yourself, and it gives you like a little description of how it works and all that. It basically tells you that on the initial execution the script may take some time because it needs to compile data, but then the next runs will look at whether a poster is missing or not, and then it'll create the missing ones, and it's going to be a little bit faster. So you have to provide it 2 directories. One of them is for the assets basically, and another one is for the configuration. And it gives you here requirements that are needed for this script to work properly. It says that you need an API for the movie database. You also need an API key for fan art. You need an API key for the TV database. You also, well, that's if you're doing the script, but we're going to be using a container, so the others are kind of irrelevant. And here is important thing, that once you have the application installed in your NAS, you need to edit a configuration file. And he has sections, or they have sections here for all the different parts that you can configure in the configuration file. So you basically come here and say, okay, I want to configure Plex. Then you can open here and it tells you what you need to configure there, what it represents, and all of that. So here is where you come to get all those details. And then it says that the file has to be renamed config.json, so it's good to know that. And basically it tells us that we can run this script in several ways. Automatic mode means that it just executes the script without any parameters to generate posters for your entire library. And then you have testing mode, which is if you pass a specific flag there, that is going to create test posters before you actually start using it. Manual mode switches to create custom posters manually. Backup mode switches to download every artwork from Plex. And then it basically gives you like a little bit of information about the automatic mode and Docker. So as you can see, this documentation is pretty extensive. So just be aware that you might need to read a lot because, like I said, it is very customizable for everyone. So depending on what you need, you have to come here and read about this. If you scroll down, you'll get to this section here that says Platforms and Tools, and there you have the reference here to the Docker Compose example file. So that'll take you to the Docker Compose file. The other ways where we saw before that takes us here into the walkthrough document, and then here's another example of the Docker Compose file, so that's another way you can get that. And that is basically all that I want to cover about the documentation here. We're gonna go here to the example Docker Compose file just to look at a few things. Here basically it's a pretty straightforward Docker Compose file. We have 2 directories that we need to create and some environment variables that we need to define, some changes that have to be made here. So when I get to that section, I'll give you my version of this Docker Compose file, and then you'll be able to get it going in your Synology NAS pretty easily. So first of all, let's go into our NAS, and in here again, as usual, since I'm running the latest version of the Synology user interface, the latest version of the Synology DSM, I have the option here to create a project. So that's what we're going to be doing. That's why we're looking at a Docker Compose file. Once again, if you're not on the latest version and you plan to do these kinds of things, I recommend you to upgrade because it's going to make your life a lot easier. So now we're going to go here into the directories that I defined in my Docker folder here. First of all, we're going to go into the projects and create a new folder here for Posterizarr, and that's where we're going to store the Docker Compose file. And then here where we have the containers, I'm going to create another folder here for Posterizarr, and inside that one I'm going to create the 2 directories for config and for assets. So those are the directories that we have to create to get this going. Now we need to create our project, so I'm going to click here on create. I'm going to name it Posterizarr. I'm going to pick that directory that I just created here from my projects. So we'll look for Posterizarr and select that, and we create a new Docker Compose file. And I'm going to put here the Docker Compose file that I created, and then we're going to see the details in a bigger screen. So here are the details Let's say next, don't build it yet, and done. And then we'll go here where we should have a Posterizarr now, and then we can come into the YAML and we'll see the contents of the Docker Compose file. So in here it's defining one container, which is going to be the Posterizarr container, and I'm going to name it Posterizarr with a capital P. We don't need this section that says host name. And then here we're going to specify the group ID, the user ID. Let me put the user on top. There we go. The time zone. And then there's other two variables here, which is which terminal to use and basically when to run the script. So in this case, if you've never created an additional user in the Synology NAS, so you only have your first administrator account, you should be 1026 and the group should be 100. If you're not using that account, then you need to check, you need to SSH into the NAS using the user that you want to use, and then run the ID command to get those values that you have to put here. Then in my case, my time zone is America, New York, so that's what I have there. And then xterm is going to be the terminal. That's the one recommended by the developers of this script, so I'm going to leave it like that. And they recommended to run it at these times. Here you can basically specify whatever time you want to run this script. It could be a list or it could be only one time, so it'll just trigger the script on that time. So then here's the description of the image that we're going to be using. So in this case, let me remove those quotes. It's going to be using this image that is from the official repository of the developers. And we're going to start the container. And if it crashes, we restart unless we manually stop it. Now the volumes that we need to specify, we're going to get that from here. So I'm going to go into config, do properties, copy this path because the path is different in my lab. So I'm going to replace this with that, and then here I'm going to replace here with that, and then that's telling us that we're going to be mounting in NAS folder to the container folder. What does that mean? It means that in the container, the /config folder is actually going to make a reference to this folder in the NAS, which is the folders that we created here. So assets is going to be mapped to assets and config to config. Basically, that's what it means. Now, we don't have to expose any ports because this is just a script that is going to do all the proper configurations for the posters and make them accessible for Plex. So that's all that we need here in the Docker Compose file for it to work. So now, first of all, let's go here into config and validate that we don't have anything. And now we can say save this, build it, and click OK. And then this is going to pull the image and build a container, and I'm going to be back when that is done. Now this process might take a while because, like I said, this application or this script runs using PowerShell. So this is more of a Windows type of environment that it needs, and as you know, those tend to be more resource intensive. So the image of that container is pretty big compared to Linux based systems. So just be patient. It's almost 2 gigs if I remember correctly. So just let it do its thing and come back when that is done. And here we go. We got the exit code 0. We got the notification here. So everything is looking good. We can go into the containers here. We see Posterizarr. We should be able to then go into the logs and see what it's doing. It is working. We can see that it says no migrations found. It found the details that we provided, and it's working on stuff here. Starting the main script. Now it's creating the folder structure. So if we come here and we refresh the config, we have a bunch of stuff here. But if you notice, it gave us the config example JSON, but we don't have the actual config.json. So it complained and said, hey, I cannot find a config.json file. So peace out. I'm not going to do anything. Put a config JSON in there and then restart me again, and then I'll get to do stuff. So this is the normal behavior of this application. So don't freak out if you see that. It's just, you didn't provide it with a configuration, so it doesn't know what to do. So now we need to fix that. So we need to rename config example JSON into config JSON. So let's do that. I'm gonna go here into my NAS. Right, and I'm gonna go into the Docker folder, and then in here we have the containers, and then in here I'm gonna look for Posterizarr, and in there we're gonna go into the configs. Let's also check assets. There's nothing here right now. That's good. And now we need to basically make a copy of this file, but we need to rename this. So we're gonna name it config.json, and there we go. Now we have the file. Now we need to open this config.json with an application. So I'm gonna be having my notepad editor for this, because here we have to discuss the changes that we need to make, right? So the first thing that we need to see is that this is JSON, so everything is in blocks. So you need to identify the block that you need to modify and then make the changes there. So the API part, if you go into the documentation and open here, you should see all of this stuff in there. So let's make it so that we can read both. Here we go. So the API part has the TV database API, and it says you need to replace this with your TV database API, so you would replace it here. Then the movie database token, you also need to get that and replace it here. Your FunArt TV API key, put it there. Your Plex token, you have to put it here. Your Jellyfin API key, you have to put it there. Your MB API key, you have to put it there. So that, depends on if you're going to be using that. You see, if it says if you're not going to use Plex, for example, don't put anything, just leave it empty. And it says Jellyfin, you can create an API key from inside Jellyfin, and it tells you how to. MB, it also tells you how to do that. So you need to make the changes that apply to you. In my case, I'm not going to go through this. I'm just trying to give you an idea of understanding what the JSON file is. So this is about the API, how the API connects to the other systems. If we scroll down a little bit in the file, we'll see also the Plex section here. So here's where you're going to put all the stuff for Plex. So you come here, you open this, and then you see the details. What it tells you: libs to exclude. That means libraries by name, how you have them defined in Plex, that you don't want to process. So that will be here. For example, they have YouTube audiobooks, kids audiobooks, and tech trainings. So then if you have anything that you don't want to process, you put it here in this list. If you don't have anything, you just get rid of it, so it doesn't have anything. So anything that is here, it's not going to be processed. Now here's the Plex URL. You have to specify the URL of your Plex instance. So that is usually the IP of your NAS, and then the port for Plex, which is by default 32400. So that's what you have to make a change in here. If you are going to be using Plex, then you set this to true. If you're not going to be using Plex, then make it false so it doesn't try to connect to Plex. And then upload existing assets. If you set it to true, then the script will check local assets and upload them to Plex. So basically those are the changes to Plex. Then you have another block here that is specific to Jellyfin. Works the same way. So things you want to exclude, the URL, if you want to use it or not, and if you want to upload the assets. For MB, basically the same thing. So you're going with each of these sections and making the changes that apply to what you need. Then here for the notification section is if you want the script to send you notifications and how. So for example, if you set this to true, send notification to true, then you can specify things that you can use to notify. For example, you can put a Discord webhook, and then it's going to notify you in Discord. You can put other things, like for example Kuma webhook URL, and then it's going to notify you with the Kuma and all of that. So if you want to use notifications, that's what you do. Then we go here to the prerequisite part, and this seems to be a very important section of the application because you see it has a lot of details here. So all the way to here, and it basically tells you, where you want to store your assets, where you want to put the backups. Do you want to upload stuff to Plex? Do you want to use symlinks? Do you want to skip to add text and all that? So basically read all of this, because this is very up to you what you want to do. But yeah, there's a lot of information here that you have to define. Then on the overlay part, basically it's a smaller section here that has two values. That it says image processing, you set it to true if you wanted to do that, and then what quality output you want that image to be. So in here, for example, it says 92%. There's also the poster overlay part. So I mean, honestly, there's just too many things that you can define here, and that is up to each individual person. So I'm not going to go through over all of them. I think you've gotten the idea of how this works. This is a script. You configure the script to behave how you want it, and then you have to kind of go with the trial and error. So based on what you do, you have it run, see if you like it. If you don't, then delete all the stuff, reconfigure it, try it again until you're satisfied with the results of what you have configured. And once you have that, perfect, it's going to run on the schedule that you specify. So that's good. Now I have put that sample config JSON file there, even though it doesn't have any API keys and stuff like that. I just wanted to run it again and see how it behaves when it knows that you have a config JSON file in there. So let me go back into the project, and I'm gonna stop this project, and then I'm gonna restart it and see what kind of logs we get from this container when it runs again. Alright, it has stopped, and I'm gonna start the project again. That should restart the container from scratch, and then we're gonna see the logs to see what has changed. Alright, it has started again. Let's go to the container. Let's see what the logs say this time. And basically it's telling us, now it doesn't complain about the configuration file because it found it. It says that the container was started and the file watcher was started. So there's some kind of process that monitors the files. And then it says the container is running, just now, so it hasn't been running for a while. And then it tells you basically the details of the version of the script and what is the latest version. So it tells you if you're behind or not. And then it says the next time that the script is going to run is going to be at 10:30 because on the schedule that we specified, that's the next one. So if we go back here, it will be 10:30. So that's why it's doing that. And yeah, it looks like now it is working. So basically now it's up to you to configure it to do whatever you want. And then this application, this script is going to generate those custom posters for your players. In my case, I'm not going to use this. Honestly, I don't need this. I'm not very picky about what the posters look like. But yeah, if you are like that and you want it in a very specific way, or maybe the posters are not available in your language, then you benefit from having this generate those posters for you, then go ahead, use this script. It's going to benefit you in that case. So that's going to be it. I know it doesn't cover a lot of showing you like the details of the results and stuff like that, but it honestly, it's very configurable, and it all depends on the person. So it just, in my opinion, doesn't make a lot of sense to try to configure it myself because you're going to do something else. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. The next video is going to be the other request from this person, which is another application. And yeah, if you like it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed to the channel. That helps us grow. That's very beneficial for the channel. And leave comments in the comment section below. As you can see, a lot of the videos that I'm creating are requests from my viewers. So I highly recommend you to comment. I try to reply to your comments as soon as possible. It's becoming more frequent, so I actually like that. It lets me know that people are actively engaging with my videos and trying stuff out themselves, so that's good. And yeah, another thing is you should have noticed that you shouldn't get an ad on my videos, and that is on purpose. I'm not monetizing the channel, but that means that whenever I go through the effort of uploading a video like this, I actually make zero money from it. So I depend entirely on your support, and that's why I shout out to you whenever you support me with a donation like I did in the beginning of the video. So if you want to help me out, go to the link in the description below, and you can send a donation using PayPal, or there's also a Bitcoin address there that you can use if you prefer to do it that way. And that's going to be very, very helpful for us. And it's going to open a lot of opportunities for us. So that's going to be it for this one. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.